Everybody, welcome to class here. This class today, I'm just going to do a little bit shorter. I always say that, then it's like 75 minutes later. But this is sort of the final chapter here of this particular part on the vessel. So it's just going to be, it's a very short chapter called Becoming Conscious. And so I just wanted to have a shorter video just talking about just a couple of the major themes in that, because we've gone over a lot of the stuff previously. And then yeah, so just a couple, like a shorter video to discuss this, and then it'll be the basis for the next part of the book called The Process, or sort of more of the tantric journey. Okay, so starting from there, we'll just start with the Heart Sutra here. Homage to perfection, wisdom, the Blessed Mother. Thus I've heard at one time the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajgriya and mass vultures mount together a great assembly of monks and nuns and a great assembly of bodhisattvas. That time the Blessed One was absorbed in the concentration of countless aspects of phenomena called profound illumination. That time also Spirit of Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the great being, was looking perfectly the price of profound perfection of wisdom, looking perfectly also at the five aggregates being empty of inherent existence. Then through the power of Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to Spirit of Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the great being, how should a son of the lineage train who wishes to engage with the price of profound perfection of wisdom? Thus he spoke, and Spirit of Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the great being, replied to Venerable Shariputra as follows. Shariputra, whatever son or daughter of the lineage wishes to engage the price of profound perfection of wisdom should look perfectly like this. Subsequently, looking perfectly and correctly, also the five aggregates being empty of inherent existence. Form is empty, emptiness is form. Emptiness is none other than form, form is none other than emptiness. Likewise, feeling, discrimination, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, like this, all phenomena are emptiness, having no characteristics. They are not produced and do not cease. They have no defilement, no separation from defilement. They have no decrease and no increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no compositional factors, no consciousness. There is no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mentality, no form, no sound, no smell, no taste, no tattoo object, no phenomenon. There is no I element, and so forth, up to no mentality element, and also up to no element of mental consciousness. There is no ignorance and no exhaustion of ignorance, and so forth, up to no aging and death, and no exhaustion of aging and death. Likewise, there is no suffering, origin, cessation, or path, no exalted awareness, no attainment, and also no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, because there is no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on and abide in the perfection of wisdom. Their minds have no obstructions and no fear. Passing utterly beyond perversity, they attain the final nirvana. Also, all Buddhas reside perfectly with three times, having relied upon the perfection of wisdom, making manifest complete Buddhas in the state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, the unsurpassed mantra, the equal to the unequal mantra, the mantra that thoroughly pacifies all suffering, since it's not false, should be known as the truth. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is proclaimed, Tayata, Om Gata Gata Paragata Parasamgati Bodhisoha. Shariputra, Bodhisattva, great being, should train the profound perfection of wisdom like this. Then the Blessed One arose from that concentration and said to Spirit of Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the great being, that he'd spoken well. Good, good, O son of the lineage, just like that. Since it is like that, just as you have revealed, in that way the profound perfection of wisdom should be practiced, and the Tathagatas will also rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, Venerable Shariputra, Spirit of Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the great being, and the entire circle of disciples, as well as worldly beings, gods, humans, demigods, and spirits, were delighted and highly praised what had been spoken by the Blessed One. Okay, so with that, just a very sort of short meditation, just mostly about setting our intention. We can visualize ourselves seated in a wide open space, surrounded by all sentient beings, those closest to us, closer to us, and those that we're not unrelated to, so to speak, further away. Mother on our left, Father on the right, people we love the most behind us support, and people we like the least or have issues with in front of us as objects of our meditation and compassion. And then going outward from beings, human beings from all over the world, living beings from the natural environment, the animal realm, beings from the spirit world, celestial beings, gods and demigods, and then hell beings and hungry ghost beings, beings in lower states of rebirth. Now just in the sky above us, we're going to visualize Buddha Vajradhara, Buddha Shakyamuni's higher angelic form, holding a Vajrayana bell crown, beautiful sapphire blue body. And again, sort of softly radiating down blue light, blessing us and empowering us all. And we're just going to leave him here today shining like the blue sun in the sky. We'll just take refuge quickly from our hearts. I and all sentient beings intuitive enlightenment, go refuge to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. So again, taking refuge in the three jewels, Buddha jewel, Dharma jewel, and Sangha jewel. So Buddha is the example and the teacher, the teaching of the Dharma, and the community supporting that. Whereas I like a little better the way Atisha, Deepamkara Vijayana, famous great Buddhist master who brought sort of the second wave of teachings of Buddhism into Tibet in the 11th century. He always said Buddha is a doctor, Dharma is the medicine, and the Sangha community is all sort of the hospital staff, nurses and so forth, helping the doctor. To show that Dharma is liberatory and therapeutic and a medicine. So we fear suffering and we have confidence or faith that this medicine will cure us. And then finally setting our intention. May everything we do be done with bodhicitta. May everything we do, everything we think, everything we speak, everything we do physically or act on, may it be towards the liberation, enlightenment of all sentient beings. May we become Buddha, that we help self-educate all other sentient beings that they become Buddha as well. Okay, so chapter 8 called Becoming Conscious. So Rob Preece says the alchemical vessel is a context in which forces are released from the darkness can be held. However, transformation will seldom occur within the vessel or the particular quality of consciousness. We need a special awareness to remain present, alert, and conscious to the energy generated as the life of the unconscious is activated. Without awareness, without this awareness, it's unlikely that transformation or integration will occur, and instead will be pulled into emotional habits and easily overwhelmed by the releasing of all these unconscious issues through the process. The main obstacle to effectiveness of any self-development path, whether it be Jungian psychotherapy, any kind of psychoanalysis, personal growth, or whatever, is the lack of awareness. Lack of awareness reflects a damaged and undeveloped sense of self-identity. From a psychological perspective, the ego is the focus of basic awareness, and it isn't an obstacle to spirituality. It is to be first has to be transcended. This is sort of the vital first step. We have to get clear what the ego is, experience it before we end up letting it go or negating it. The stability of the ego is related to the capacity to maintain conscious awareness and to be cultivated. And to have cultivated stable threshold between conscious and unconscious issues that gives a sense of continuity and individuality. So before Tantra, any kind of practice for it, just like before Jungian psychotherapy, normal sort of personal stability must be developed. A stable ego identity is imperative in personal growth so we aren't blown around by unconscious emotional turbulence and able to gain clarity and focus of our awareness. We have to be a spiritual warrior towards emotional problems arising from the unconscious. Strengthening our capacity for awareness and mindfulness. This is the most important thing. Even if we know our patterns and habits, we are unconscious if we have no mindfulness. No capacity to choose as to whether they dominate us or whether we can act differently. So what Rob Preece is saying here is for this process to work in psychotherapy, obviously, psychotherapy, when you're in any kind of therapy, you have to show up and do the work, but you also have to be present, obviously. Show up and that's to be present, to commit, to actually put yourself in the program. Just like at the gym, I get my expensive personal trainer, show up at the gym, but if I'm not paying attention, not doing the exercise, doing anything quote unquote half-assed, not working on my diet or exercise or doing anything post workout, but even like I say, in the workout itself, if I'm not really trying, I'm distracted. When the personal trainer is explaining something, I'm on Instagram scrolling, and it's kind of like you're not serious, you're not really committed, and then nothing's going to happen. Like we always hold ourselves back, especially when you're doing psychotherapy where you're being asked to change because you're there in therapy because something, they say you're in a psychoanalytic deadlock. You can't move forward in your life and you can't go backwards. You're stuck. So you want things to change, which means in your life, you have to change. But the investment you have is not to change. You want the world to change, but you don't want yourself to change. So for this change to take place, where you actually start changing in your own life, you have to take the responsibility of being an author of your life. Take responsibility for your freedom and choices to choose differently or change yourself, right? To end up becoming a different person, going to sort of making your life work again, wanting the happiness of self-fulfillment, freedom, or creativity or empowerment or whatever that you want and deserve. But you have to do this yourself. No one can do this for you, not your therapist, not Buddha, not Jesus, not the President of the United States, anybody. If they could, you could ask them and they would do this for you. But precisely because even if they want to help you, they can't. It puts you back in the driver's seat. But the basis for this is your awareness. You being aware, you being present, you being committed, you showing up for the whole thing. That's why even in Buddhism, Tantra is the gold little Buddha statue on the roof of the temple. It's sort of the gold ornament. But all the sutric basis of three principal paths of renunciation, bodhicitta, wisdom, realizing emptiness, are the scaffolding or the foundation, the temple itself, that you can put the nice little gold ornament of Tantra on the top. And one of the biggest things we do, like even when we're studying Lam Rim and renunciation, of course, we're going to start with the regular Lam Rim objects of finding a teacher, finding the path. This is like initial scope stuff, reflecting on the gift of our precious human life, death and impermanence, and lower rebirth, karma, refuge, and so forth. But really, you can go to university or college and study all this, or just go online, watch videos on YouTube, or do AI to write you a little thing on what Buddhism is. But everyone knows with Buddhism, the first thing you have to do is to meditate. All of these changes in yourself are changes in your awareness, in your mind, in your subjectivity, in your agency. So first and foremost, you have to be present, show up, have the awareness. The whole basis of this sort of psychotherapy of Dharma, your consciousness has to be there. That's why even if we go into the intermediate scope of Lam Rim, where we're still working on the first principal path of renunciation, moving into third of wisdom, realizing emptiness, we talk about the three higher trainings: ethics, concentration, and wisdom, wisdom, realizing emptiness, right? So sila and shamatha and jhana, or wisdom. And those last two, it's shamatha and vipassana, right? If you know those terms there too. So we know that we need the ethical part, which is just creating positive, virtuous, wholesome actions of body, speech, and mind that create happiness in our life, that create freedom in our life, that create awareness in our life, right? That's what ends up our ethics controlling our mind or ourself for the first time, that we end up on a positive, safe direction, a safe trajectory of wholesome self-overcoming and personal growth and self-development. That allows you to go to the second step, which is concentration. I can't concentrate my mind if I'm distracted with bad behavior, feeling guilty for things that I've done, completely obsessed, addicted about stuff. I can't sit still. If I can't sit still and concentrate, then I can't have wisdom, realizing emptiness, where I have to concentrate in a concentrated fashion, hold an image of the wisdom image of emptiness, or let's say interconnectedness, dependent origination, that this is the knife that cuts through the Gordian knot of my self-cherishing mind, based on my self-grasping mind, my ignorant mind that thinks that things are not in a relationship to one another. And then because of my selfishness, I act in bad actions of body, speech, and mind that create further suffering for myself and others. So what you see is awareness or consciousness starts right at the beginning, even the three principal trainings. I have to be aware to be ethical, to be in my life as an agent, as an ethical agent, realizing my own freedom to make choices, to be able to be accountable for my choices, right? That has to start. And the more ethical I am, the more that impacts in a positive way on my awareness and vice versa. I need awareness to be ethical. My ethical life puts me in the driver's seat to be more and more aware. Then I can do the other two higher trainings of concentration and wisdom. Then I can go into the Bodhisattva path of Mahayana teachings, which is the second principal path, aspect of the path, which is bodhicitta. So the three higher trainings will lead me to escape samsara nirvana. Of course, doing everything with bodhicitta. The second principal aspect of the path will allow me to be a Buddhahood and not just an arhat or a saint, liberated saint, right? Tantra is just using more esoteric, magical means to do this with bodhicitta, of course, right? But with Tantra, you need awareness, you need concentration to do all the visualizations, to do all the mantras. And then let's say if you're doing Maha Anuttara Yoga, highest yoga Tantra, completion stage, or sort of the tip-top part of that stuff, all of that sort of internal alchemy depends on concentration. Not just on visualization of K-Rim or generation stage, but completion stage is just concentration. So concentration, again, will only be as good. All of this works in terms of emptiness, and has to, because we're working with language and visualization, sort of almost like poetic visualization, imagination to create things, but we need the concentration and the ethics to control our mind. So you can see right from the beginning, when I start with Lam Rim, very basic, just show up at a Buddhist temple or show up, on YouTube watching Buddhist videos or whatever, TikTok or whatever you do nowadays. I start with awareness, and right at the very end, I end with awareness. And awareness is all the way through, which is why we use the term Tantra, meaning continuity or thread. What is stuck in samsara as a sentient being suffering is a mind, object possessor, a mind possessor, which is a sentient being. What gets enlightened is becomes this angelic, beautiful being made of light and energy and love and kindness and compassion, everything else. A Buddha, this angel being, is a being of awareness as well. So that awareness is there all the time, lifetime to lifetime, in every single moment. So we have to show up, just like Rob Preece says. And so doing this difficult work, if you're doing tantric work where you're working with the unconscious in a Jungian sense, this agency of ethical agency and sort of existential agency of your awareness, that has to be there to take ownership of everything that's alchemically happening. For it to work in the first place, to be committed to the whole process, but also to be able to accept what happens and to deal with it, work with it, right? The big explosion of the unconscious in your personal life, it's yours, you own it. There is a great line by Jacques Lacan, Mange ton destin, which is Dasein. It means human reality, and Heidegger's being in time. So the idea of eating that, owning that, your own existential status, your own existential awareness, your own existential life, your desire, you have to desire your desire. You have to sort of own or be accountable for your own awareness, which is always already there. I have to be present, I have to existentially own this whole thing, show up. This is my process, my self-education, my enlightenment, my samsara. All of this is happening. This is my movie, right? And then Rob Preece says that basically we have to get clear what the ego is and the susceptibility of the ego before we reject it. And so in a lot of ways, this idea of showing up or owning, this is a positive ego. It's not the idea of agency in particular, or existential agency. We talk about in Madhyamika Prasangika, or in Middle Way Consequential School, we talk about the mere I, or the nominal I. That I is, of course, just the labeled I, Matthew, or hey, you, right? Interpolation in a Althuserian sense, hey, you, who, me? This kind of thing, like when I go to Starbucks, I'm on my phone or whatever, and then they go, Matthew, and oh, that's me, that's my latte that I ordered, my flat white in Australia, just pick it up. That's just the normal everyday ego, which is completely fine. The agency of me living my life, that awareness is a good ego. The bad ego is the self-cherishing, self-grasping ego, which is me, unrelated to everything else, me against the world, me, I, being entitled, this kind of ego that's ignorantly set, like I say, up against, standing against the world because it doesn't see itself as just being merely labeled or dependent arising or a product of the mind or a construct, so to speak, right? So this is kind of interesting where Jung then says, the shadow side for Jung is the repressed side of our nature, kept in the dark by fear and denial. It lives in darkness, and until we look, it will intensify and grow, emerge, overwhelm, dominate, or even extinguish our clarity and awareness. Then we lose the capacity for choice. When we're doing Tantra, the shadowy, chaotic, and wild side of our nature is the primary importance in transformation because it holds much more of the vitality, and we have to face this power honestly. Spiritual path that cannot address the force of the unconscious splits into good or evil. So we see this, like, once we start this process, again, of Dharma process, Jungian process of self-overcoming, we're allowing all this stuff, we're facing everything, we're owning everything in our life, purifying, alchemically transforming it. If we don't do this work and keep everything in the repressed shadow side, we will live, number one, we will never be completely free because, like I said before, there'll be so much energy tied up in hiding parts of ourselves from ourselves because they're too ugly or too painful or too hurt or too sensitive, right? And also we'll end up having this dualistic, bifurcating life of those kinds of things will end up being alienated and seen as evil or ugly or unwanted. And the good, holy parts of ourselves will be as the sacred parts, not the profane parts, we'll see as being what you want to invest in. This sort of awareness that we're cultivating ends up being a non-dual awareness of accepting everything in this alchemical process that we can then move to transform, right? And why this is important to transform those things, all the energy, that huge side of ourselves, like Freud would say, like the iceberg, where you're seeing the little top floating on the surface of the ocean, everything underneath, all of that psychic power, emotional power, sensitivity, imagery, and everything else that is kept in the shadow side, that's all stuff that we can use. That's all a part of us. This is like a whole extended, alienated, or I don't say disassociated, but it's like whole parts of our family that have been shunned that we never even knew existed. And then when you have a big family and everyone comes back, we all get to know each other and forgive each other. And it's like, oh my goodness, there was this whole side of the family that for politics or problems or whatever was sort of, shunned or whatever. Now they've become, I've got a bigger family. This is wonderful. All these parts of ourselves, it's like a soul retrieval. We can welcome back and have a bigger sense of ourselves. And all that power I can put towards my spiritual journey, right? But again, depends on the quality of awareness that I'm able to do that. So in the chapter, they talk about Jung's complexes, concept of complexes, which he invented as a psychoanalytic concept, which is great, which is emotional patterns that constitute the shadowy material within our unconscious. They cluster together around particular instinctual needs or emotional traumas, right? Complexes are incompatible with consciousness and arise when our buttons are pushed. We experience identification with our complex, emotional content is overpowering, and it transforms the person in a moment, let's say into a wounded child or something like that, right? So as long as we are unconscious or have this whole shadowy side, we don't have the full freedom to be authors of our lives, right? We don't have the full freedom of choice. We can't, and from a tantric point of view, we can't really create ourselves as a deity when there's whole parts of ourselves that need soul retrieval, that need to be made whole. And you see this, these are huge obstacles on your path, even in a tantric sense that like, let's say, I mean, I've seen this. I mean, I have my own issues in my own path here, but we see this in Buddhist communities where you have people with addictions and they can't get a whole further on their path because they have addiction, substance abuse, or anything else to do. They have psychological issues that are all getting triggered with tantric practice in the community. Let's say whether it be mental illness like depression, bipolar disorder, anxiety disorders that all get jacked up through the practice. So all of this has to be healed. First, you're brought into the process itself. So unfortunately, even in the Tibetan Buddhist community, these things a lot of times aren't in a tantric way, but brought into the whole process with awareness. So everyone likes to talk the talk like, oh my goodness, like Chomanangmo up here, we love Tantra, we love all the dark side, and oh my goodness, like all these ugly things, High Yoga Tantra are really pure, like poo is pure, menstrual blood is pure, and anger I can use, and sexual desire is so beautiful. But then in the community, oh, so-and-so has a drug problem, oh, I'm going to get that guy out of here, or so-and-so is mentally ill, she has anxiety disorders or bipolar. Well, we don't want someone like that in our community, But it's just like, hey, if we're the big non-dual left-hand path practitioners, we have to accept everything and work to transform it, work to heal it, and accept it in other people and within ourselves. And it's kind of sad in a lot of ways, communities. Now, mind you, these are Buddhist communities. We're not, people come to me with these kinds of problems as a Buddhist teacher, and I always say, hey, I'm not a social worker. I'm not a psychotherapist. I'm not a psychoanalyst, even though I've done my philosophy degree. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a lawyer. I don't. I'm not a like I say, like a sociologist working with family issues for the government. With children's services or something like this. I'm not even a healer, even though I do Reiki and therapeutic Qigong. I can't sort of claim to be an amazing traditional healer, someone that does acupuncture or a bone setter or something like this. And so I always say, I have to refer you guys to the professionals to take care of this. So we can't really, play all these roles and be everything to everybody in a Buddhist community. We're just doing spiritual stuff right here, right? But at the same time, we have to sort of accept everything about ourselves and everything about others in the community and make sure that we all love each other and everyone gets the help and healing that we all need with together and individually, right? So one thing Rob Preece says, just to finish here, is he says for these complexes or unconscious issues, to be able to be more free, own them, to really sort of have them become part of us, he says we have to name them, give them a face, and face them so they're no longer monsters in your sort of unconscious. And of course, we need that awareness for this to be possible. We begin to awaken from our unconscious, the undifferentiated pre-reflective state, and now sort of gets brought into conscious awareness. At the root of these complexes a lot is, of course, traumas from childhood or family upbringing. It's a lot of times even past life traumas as well. So recognizing and naming emotional patterns enables us to disidentify, so our sense of self is freed from their power, the tyranny of their power, unconscious power there, and rescues our consciousness from sort of drowning in our unconscious issues. At the root is a fundamental wounded ego belief, and we identify with this fundamental ego belief, these fundamental beliefs about ourselves that we picked up, let's say, in childhood and so forth. So learn to disidentify with them. Don't buy into them 100%, right, these complexes. Separate our awareness from this, the identification with our wounded emotional beliefs, which are the root of our suffering. For a Buddhist viewpoint, the ego isn't a complex phenomena. It is merely a subjective focus of awareness that can be held at all times, even when the emotional life of the unconscious is powerfully active. So two things here. One thing I thought with the idea of naming and working with this classic sort of Gestalt therapy from the early 20th century, but of course, great teacher, Tibetan Buddhist teacher, Sotra Melioni, great Chit teacher that I like very much. She has her whole way of doing Chit, or Tibetan Buddhist cutting practice, where it's called feeding your demons, where you externalize these unconscious complexes, and you end up putting a name and a face to them. And it's go on her website, read her books, get her training, this and that. I'm not the big expert here, but I like it very, very much. And it's not unique because, like I say, Gestalt there's a lot of psychoanalytic and therapy modalities that do a very, very similar thing. Like in Gestalt therapy, like, okay, your mom is sitting in this empty chair beside, what would your mom say to you? What would you say back to her? What would your mom want from you? What do you want from your mom? This kind of thing. So with feeding your demons, you personify these demons, these parts of yourselves, these wounded parts that are demons because they suffer and they cause you suffering, right? But at the same time, because they're repressed, they end up becoming a monster in the shadow side of yourself, right? So it's, what do you want is the first question. Well, I want to make your life miserable. I want to kill you. I want to eat your whatever, eat your heart. Or, I mean, I'm just joking, but like this kind of thing. But then what Sultan Malioni says is, once you do more and more work with this, you go, it's the psychoanalytic way of getting deeper into the shadow, into the unconscious, where the next question is the important question, is what do you need? What's the drive operating there? So, this is where Jacques Lacan would say that drives need to be recognized in a Hegelian sense, right? They need to be able to show themselves, be sort of name present, but accepted. Like, who are you? What do you want? See how you're a part of me, this kind of thing, right? So, what do you need, demon? That's something quite different. So what do you want? Well, I want to cause all these problems for you. Well, what do you need? Well, I'm lonely, or I feel unlovable. I need to be loved. I need to be forgiven. These kinds of things. And then from Chip point of view, well, I'll give you this. I'll visualize myself being this goddess that can give you, and then it transforms, the demon transforms into the ally, like someone that can help you. And so it's like the soul retrieval, that part of yourself that's healed and can finally come home, that's forgiven, and can be itself and come home to you, right? So this is feeding your demons, Sultan Malioni's chit practice, but I believe that this happens anyway when you're doing Tantra, and probably when you're doing Jungian psychotherapy or those kinds of modalities as well. It's the idea of making yourself whole. And if Tantra ultimately is about the non-duality of reality, seeing that everything is a product of the mind, even from a tantric imaginal point of view, like seeing everything as a Buddha Pure Land rather than samsara, everything has to be made whole. Everything has to be alchemically transformed there. And then the other one is that, I guess, ending for this class is that awareness is always there. Like I remember, and believe me, like I don't, people close to me have had horrific traumas and abuse stories. So I'm not making, whenever I say this, of course, I'm not a therapist. I'm not making light of anything or sort of trying to give facile, spiritual platitudes to deal with these things. But I remember reading a good article, it might have been in Shambhala Sun, Buddhist journal a while ago. And it was a woman who wrote in and said that she'd been sexually abused earlier on in her life. And one of the things she got into Buddhist meditation that helped is she's able to identify this awareness, pre-personal anonymous awareness, that's always already there. And that was there when she's abused as a little girl and is there now. It's the same awareness. And that awareness is always pure, anonymous, universal, sort of untouchable, creative, powerful, always arising anew. And so it's not something that was destroyed or stained, made ugly or traumatized, whatever, nor is it redeemed now when I'm meditating on it. It's always already been there as sort of the backdrop of my life, and that there was a freedom and power to that sort of kickstart her healing in therapy. And I thought, wow, that's really, really amazing. So that is Tantra, that is continuity. We're working with this awareness that can be the source of the hell of our lives in samsara or the heaven of our lives in sort of these purified, sort of enlightened states. But the mind, which is, as we define it, clear and cognizing, is the same for an insect, the same for me suffering in samsara, and the same for an angelic Buddha, like the Buddhas behind us here, right? It is just this sheer, pristine, luminous awareness, open to the world. And it is empty, and it can be anything. Whatever you put into it is what it becomes. So that power, that freedom is always already there. This is what we have to sort of, it is very existential, it's very Sartrean. Like, this is the point. This is what we show up to. This is what we learn to own. This is what is the basis, the alpha and omega for our spiritual practice here. especially for our alchemical practice. This is ironically both the vessel and the process and the end result. So the last thing I wanted to say is just from we talked about last week or just 3 days ago when I recorded it about the body and prana and so forth. I just wanted to just end with a little bit of a reflection. It's a little bit of advice for tantric practice is, we're talking about, healing and alchemy and Jungian psychotherapy and the whole sort of journey of self-overcoming and personal growth here. But what I want to say is that it really, this journey to enlightenment, just like a journey through therapy in your own life, just like a journey of education, like you start going to school, kindergarten, and then end up, going to college or something. It takes a village to do that. And it's very challenging to do that nowadays. In the period of Kali Yuga that we live in right now, the sort of age of coral, dark age here in the opening decades of the 21st century. In the old days, let's say Tibet, China, Nepal, Japan, wherever you want to say, doing these kinds of tantric practices, you have an entire world that will support you doing this process of self-overcoming. So people lived in traditional societies, good and bad to that, of course, as you know, but they lived in villages. A lot of people never left their village their whole lives, but they were part of extended families, cultural blocks, sometimes racial blocks, tribal blocks. There was a whole culture, religion, a whole order to your life that you had that would support you to do this work. So we talked about being fully embodied and how completely with, let's say, speaking for North American society here that I live in, how disassociated we are from ourselves and our body. We live in a world now, being online, not in your body, oftentimes in North America, with a completely eroding or even at this point fracturing or ripped apart social fabric where people don't have sort of healthy or even put together families, extended families. They live in communities where they don't even know their neighbors. Nowadays there's so much pressure with late capitalism going into transhumanist neo-feudalism. That's another story, but in the sense that the political economy we live in, the political structure we live on too, this is the age of everything coming apart. The in-between ages, let's say the third American empire falls apart and something else, for better or for worse, takes its place. Everything is coming apart now. And so all the old certainties that we had, both on a macro level of society, culture, civilization, politics, economy, even religion, are all falling apart. And even on a personal level, people's families, people's relationships, their childhood, everything else, schools, hospitals, local governments, basic social institutions are all falling apart. So Antonio Gramsci, famous Italian communist, is a quote that's gone around for a while now, where he says, "The world to come is not yet born. The world of the past is over. It's all fallen apart. Like everything's finished. What we're waiting for isn't arrived yet." It says, "Now is the time of monsters." So this could be like everything's a bardo, everything's the mind, everything's empty. So on a creative thing, we can create new amazing structures, and that's what we're trying to do in our own personal tantric path right now. But now is the time of monsters. It's the time of the unconscious, and we don't know what's going to come yet, for better or for worse. But even in our own lives, we don't know what's going to come. So everything on a collective and individual level, all the monsters are coming out of the unconscious now. So what I'm saying is that it's hard to do this work properly, or to do it at all. I have my own cynical beliefs about the future of tantric Buddhism in the world, but I'm an old man now, and maybe old man just like Oscar Wilde used to say, never listen to anything old people say, they're always wrong. Maybe I'm just old and cynical right now as I'm getting older at the end of my life. we'll see what happens. We'll see where all of this goes. I'm not saying Dharma will disappear because it'll always be here in some form. Tantra, in a lot of ways, might be here in some form. I'm not too sure. There's only 3 Buddhas of 1,000 of the Sand that teach Tantra. Buddha Shakyamuni is the 4th. The 5th one, Buddha Maitreya, does not teach Tantra, at least not in an open way. So we'll see where all this goes. But this, even in the old days when things were a lot better and more laid out, let's say in Himalayan culture or in Japanese culture, let's say, or places where there is Tantra, to do this kind of work, back then it was really hard to do. Nowadays, I'm not saying it's impossible, it's extremely difficult to do. So give yourself a little bit of a break. We're doing the best we can under trying circumstances, trying circumstances. So people say, well, what do you need? Well, you sort of need a whole village to do this work. So I always feel to do good tantric work, we need all, our awareness and spiritual path stuff, but you need a teacher, most of all. You need teacher or teachers. You need a community of people doing the same kind of work to support you, either virtually or real people. You need to stay in contact with people that have known you, your family and friends, people you love that are not Dharma people, so they can have an objective take on what's happening to you when you're doing Tantra, in case you could going crazy, you're getting dissociated, right? Oftentimes, your Dharma friends that might kind of be the best judge because they've come drinking the Kool-Aid, right? So if I'm always saying, my goodness, I come home from work and Green Tar's, cooking me an omelet, they'll be like, oh, right on, man. That's amazing. You're like totally realized. Whereas your mom or your best friends at work might just say, Matthew, I think you're having a psychotic break. You're a total weirdo now. You can't do your work at work. You're talking to yourself. Like, are you okay? So it's good to keep all these people that know you best. And then it's kind of like what I always say in academics when I did my philosophy degree, peer review, which is what guarantees that you do good work or good research, is you have all these other people, your peers, judging your work. You read edit my journal, my journal entry, like read this book. What do you think? Just like your musician friends, I've got a new album, listen to it. Oh, Matthew, it sucks. It's the worst one you've ever done. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it sounded good. You need all that. Then you need to do, like I said, like stuff to get you embodied. You need to exercise and have a good, healthy diet, whatever that looks like, based on your constitution, maybe in your genetic background or whatever. Talk to your naturopath, talk to your doctor. It's good to have some kind of an energy practice. Yoga, Qigong, Tai Chi, some form of martial arts is good. Even like I tell my friends, just swimming, some kind of breath work, pranayama. And then like I have like energy workers, TCM, needle workers. I have friends that are shamans. I have a whole team of people, psychic friends, like a village helping me do this. And most of all, my root teachers as a Rinpoche, my other lamas, and my yogi and yogini friends, my own wife, who's an advanced tantric and qigong practitioner, Christina Sanchez. But I have a whole village helping me do this. You literally can't do it alone. I don't even think you probably could have done it alone 500 years ago in Tibet, but in today's crazy Kali Yuga, you can't do it alone. It's too difficult. It's too dangerous. So that's just the point I wanted to see, to have the proper, healthy, wholesome environment, where we're sort of really doing this alchemical work. It takes a lot of people supporting you, like some celebrity where you have your media handlers, the makeup girl, or whatever, like everyone helping you sort of be sort of the pop star or something. You're becoming the tantric yogi or yogini or practitioner. You need all these people around you helping you keep a healthy body and a healthy mind. So I just wanted to say that. And anyhow, so that's the class today. Thank you so much for coming. We'll just take a moment to dedicate this. Blessings of all holy beings, the truth of karma, however appears for intention, may all dharma wishes be fulfilled. And dedicate all of this merit for the awakening of all sentient beings. Okay, we'll see you next time then.